Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world one book at a time.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into Aravind Adiga's 2008 Booker Prize winner, The White Tiger. The sources you've gathered for us here, they trace this just vicious, relentless cycle of poverty, violence, and this really distorted idea of economic mobility. And it's all framed by the singular perspective of one man, Balram Halwai.
Okay, so let's just jump right into that central contradiction. We are constantly fed these stories, the self-made hero, the rags to riches tale. And these narratives, they're incredibly powerful. But when one person, just one, like Balram, manages to break out of that generational poverty, what does that success actually prove? Does that one outlier show that the system works, that there's a path for anyone if they just try hard enough?
And that is the absolute tightrope the book forces you to walk, because Balram's answer to that is a resounding, just brutal no. He argues that the systems in place of corruption, of caste, of economic extraction, they're so effective at keeping people down that the only way to get free, truly free, is through, well, violent transgression.
So the success story doesn't prove the rules work.
No, it proves the rules have to be completely shattered.
And this whole paradox is just deepened by the setting. Modern India. We see this nation that's boasting incredible economic growth. I mean, you have booming tech, entrepreneurship, especially in a city like Bangalore. That's the official story anyway.
But Balram, who comes from what he calls the darkness, he just pulls the curtain right back on that narrative. He shows that this explosive modern economy exists right alongside this crippling failure of basic public services.
He lists them, doesn't he? It's devastating.
It is. He just rattles them off. Drinking water, electricity, sewage system, public transportation, and then it gets into the social fabric, sense of hygiene, discipline, courtesy, or punctuality. The new India can serve American work hours, but it can't give its own people clean water.
That's the crisis of perception right there. The success is real, but it's so narrowly distributed. It reveals a system that's built for profit for a few, while it just actively fails the many.
Right. And Balram's whole point is that those official stories, the ones about, spiritual India and democracy, they are designed specifically to hide the exploitation that the whole miracle is built on.
The success of the light, as he calls it, depends on the darkness being invisible.
And degraded. It's not an accident. It's structural.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to look at social mobility, but through a totally different lens. We're analyzing the mechanics of how Balram gets ahead, not as a morality play, but as a systematic battle against these massive, seemingly unmovable barriers.
And we have to remember, in the world Adiga shows us, things like ethics and loyalty, they're just luxuries. They're luxuries most people can't afford.
It's the path of necessary duality.
To really get Balram's truth, and he delivers it with this kind of flair of a self-taught philosopher, we have to ground the book in its context. Aravind Adiga, the author, he was a journalist for Time magazine.
And you can feel that, can't you? That journalist's eye for the gritty detail.
Absolutely. The book was published in 2008, right in the middle of India's rapid globalization in the early 21st century.
This was the moment everyone was looking at India as the next big thing, the economic giant, a sort of democratic answer to China.
And Adiga just captures the fractures that this creates in society. It leads to this starkly divided world that Balram calls the light and the darkness.
Right. The light is the rich urban centers, Delhi, Bangalore, where global money flows, and it's all insulated by, tinted car windows and AC.
While the darkness, where Balram is from, that's most of India. It's the decaying rural villages, the towns with no infrastructure, endemic poverty, where the government has basically just...
And Balram's whole narrative choice immediately shows that he gets this global power shift. He's not just writing a diary. He's writing a 7-night-long letter to the visiting Chinese premier, Wen Jiabao.
Which is such a brilliant device. It immediately raises the stakes beyond just a personal story. Balram sees the 21st century as this contest between the yellow and the brown man, India and China.
And Premier Jiabao is visiting to learn the secret of creating entrepreneurs.
Exactly. Because, as Balram sees it, the Chinese are ahead in every physical way. Sewage, water, the Olympics. But they supposedly lack that freewheeling individual spirit of India.
So Balram sets himself up as the premier's, what does he call it, his midnight educator.
Yeah, he's going to give him the real gritty truth about Bangalore, the truth about the corruption that the Indian politicians with their welcome garlands and their speeches about Gandhi will never share.
He wants Jiabao to know that all those Western business books, the ones about success through integrity, they're a joke, obsolete. Balram thinks he's the real face of the economic tomorrow.
And that brings us right to the book's central and very amoral thesis, which is that when inequality is this extreme, when the system fails the majority, and when the state has basically vanished for the poor,
Yeah.
then ideas like loyalty and morality just become secondary.
They're luxuries. The only things that matter are survival and grabbing power.
You see it so clearly in how he describes the successful Indian entrepreneur. It's really him justifying his own life.
It is. He says the entrepreneur has to be straight and crooked, mocking and believing, sly and sincere at the same time.
That's not a success story. That's a survival guide for a bent system. If you're only straight, you just get crushed.
And Balram's voice is the engine that just drives this whole thing forward. He's self-taught, he's incredibly smart, witty, but also just so deeply cynical.
He has this profound contempt for India's official story, the sanitized version.
And he sums it all up in that one phrase he learns from his master's wife, Pinky Madam.
What a fucking joke.
Exactly. That becomes his mantra. And he sees his own violent climb not as a crime, but as what? An economic masterstroke, an act of entrepreneurship. His success isn't just about money, it's about the symbols of status he collects.
Oh, absolutely. The symbols are everything. They show how fast he's risen, but also how deeply insecure he still is about it.
Like his office in Bangalore.
Yes, his tiny 150 square foot office, which he proudly says has the only chandelier of that size in the whole city, just dripping with diamond-shaped glass pieces.
And the silver Macintosh laptop he buys online from Singapore.
Yeah.
These things are the props for his new identity.
They are, but the irony is just so sharp. The chandelier, he explains, isn't just for show. He needs it to keep the lizards away.
Wow. So even in his moment of success, in the light, he's still haunted by the decay of the darkness. His luxury is fragile. It's still defined by the holes in the wall where he came from.
And to really understand that fear, you have to go back to his origins, to Laxmangar. It's a place steeped in irony, it's near Bodh Gaya, where the Buddha found enlightenment.
But Balram's village is the opposite of enlightened. It's defined by decay. Dead electricity poles, broken water taps.
And the description of the river Ganga, it just shatters any romantic ideas about spiritual India. He warns the premier not to dip in the Ganga unless you want your mouth full of feces, straw, soggy parts of human bodies. It's just this litany of horrors.
That pollution is a direct symbol of the state's abandonment.
And the human cost of that is embodied by his father, a rickshaw puller, a human beast of burden, as Balram calls him. He dies of tuberculosis in a government hospital, waiting for a doctor who never comes.
His death isn't just a personal tragedy. It's a direct result of the system failing.
It is, and his father's only dream was for one of his sons to live like a man. That desire for basic dignity, born from total systemic failure, is what sets Balram on his path.
And reinforcing all of this is the local ruling class, the landlords of Laxmangar, the four animals.
Yes, let's name them, because they're the local enforcers of this system. You have the stork who owns the river, the wild boar who owns the good farmland, the raven who owns the worst land.
And the buffalo, the greediest of all, who owns the roads and the rickshaws and takes a third of everything the drivers earn.
They're a brutal little oligarchy. And their control is absolute because it's based on the capacity for extreme, untraceable violence.
We see that chilling example when they torture and kill a servant after one of the landlord's sons is kidnapped by Naxals.
That's such a key detail. For listeners, the Naxals are Maoist insurgents, often seen as a form of armed resistance against these oppressive systems. But the landlords have so much power, they can execute a man with zero legal consequences.
Balram sees this firsthand. He learns the lesson early. Power comes from fear and violence, not the law.
So moving from that setup to the core analytical engine of the book, we have to talk about the Rooster Coop.
Right. This is the central metaphor.
It is. Balram describes the poultry market in Old Delhi. You have thousands of chickens crammed into these wire cages. They can smell the blood. They can see their brothers being chopped up right next to them. They know what's coming.
And yet, none of them try to escape. They just wait their turn. It's a chilling metaphor for how structural entrapment works on humans.
It's terrifying because it asks that fundamental question. Why doesn't a driver with 1 million rupees in the backseat just run? Why doesn't a servant with a suitcase full of diamonds just disappear? The opportunity is always there.
And the answer is the Rooster Coop. They are psychologically conditioned to obey. They're paralyzed.
Paralyzed by fear of what will happen to their families back in the village, and by this inertia born from generations of being servants, this inherent trustworthiness of servants, Balram says, isn't a moral virtue.
No, he says it's the basis of the entire Indian economy. The whole system runs on the poor policing themselves.
And if you try to be honest, if you try to be like Gandhi, you just end up a crushed human in a crushed uniform, another casualty.
This coercion is made explicit from the moment he's hired. Mr. Ashok only finalizes the job after he confirms, "We know exactly where they are."
His family is registered as hostages. The emotional bond of family is turned into a weapon of control.
And Balram's life in the city is just this constant duality. He gets his khaki uniform, and he's so proud of it. It's a symbol of status, of survival.
He literally stares at his own reflection in bank windows, admiring this new, elevated version of himself.
But that status is completely tied to degradation. The scene where he has to massage the stork's feet.
It's so visceral. That act of forced intimacy leaves the smell of old, flaky skin on his hands no matter how much he washes them. His pride and his humiliation are two sides of the same coin.
And we have to be clear here. In Balram's world, corruption is infrastructure. It's not just a few bad apples. It's the entire operating system.
It is. It starts at the bottom. School teachers steal lunch money because the government hasn't paid them. It goes all the way up to politicians who literally buy fingerprints for votes to swing an election.
And at the very top, the landlord families use corruption like a shield. They fix court cases. They evade millions in taxes on their coal business. For them, the law isn't a set of rules. It's a commodity you can buy.
The system is designed to be bent. Success means having enough money to navigate the bends.
So if the whole system is designed to trap you, then the only way out, in Balram's logic, is a total breach. It's entrepreneurship through violence and moral rupture.
Exactly. The white tiger is that one-in-a-generation freak who's born without that paralyzing fear.
And he learns this from example, right? His first role model wasn't some saint. It was Vijay, the bus conductor.
The paired son who rose up through pure political ruthlessness. People whispered he'd done favors for a powerful politician.
Balram didn't see the moral cost. He saw the result. Vijay had a uniform, a paycheck, a silver whistle. He wasn't a pinhead anymore.
The lesson was crystal clear. Success means doing whatever he had to do. The white tiger has to embrace that aggression, cut all his ties, and commit the one unforgivable act to finally break free.
Let's really get into the weeds on the mechanics of the Rooster Coop, because it's fascinating and it's also deeply chilling how this system maintains obedience without, constant overt violence.
It's a masterclass in psychological conditioning, passed down through generations. There's that moment where the stork hits Balram on the head while he's massaging his feet.
And Mr. Ashok, his son, is shocked by it.
He is. He questions his father. And the stork's reply is just cold structural logic. He says, "They expect it from us, Ashok. Remember that. They respect us for it."
That's a terrible thing to hear. It means the subservience is so deep that the poor have actually internalized the hierarchy. They see that display of power as confirmation of a stable, if brutal, order.
And what do they value most in that order? Security, even the most basic kind. Balram's first room, a shared space on the floor in Dhanbad, was, in his words, much nicer than sleeping on the road.
So for someone from the darkness, that tiny bit of security is everything.
And the threat of having it taken away is a weapon just as powerful as a fist.
And that security is always tied back to his family. Balram is so blunt about it, he says, the Indian family is the reason we are trapped and tied to the coop.
It's a devastating insight. At first, he submits completely. He sends almost all of his 90 rupee monthly earnings back home to his grandmother, Kusum.
And it's not charity, it's an obligation. It's a tool of control.
Absolutely. Because Kusum then tries to use that control to force him into a marriage he doesn't want, arguing it's for the good of the community. His personal ambition has to be sacrificed for the collective.
And when he tries to break free, when he stops sending money, they retaliate.
They do. They send a blackmail letter, which one of the landlords reads aloud to him, threatening to expose his defiance to his master. It proves that family ties, which should be about support, are just another lever the system can pull to enforce compliance. The family is the master's best unpaid security force.
And Balram's intelligence, that white tiger trait, at first it just gets channeled into him being a better servant.
That's the tragic part. He eavesdrops on his master's conversations to learn English, to learn about America. That's his education. He's trying to rise up within his role, not outside of it.
But even that small act of self-improvement is seen as a threat.
Immediately. In the servants' quarters, the other drivers, Vitiligo Lips and Rampersad, they police him. They mock him for doing yoga. They despise him for not just gossiping and drinking like they do.
Which proves his theory. The coop is guarded from the inside. The poor drag each other down, enforcing the norms of subservience. They're their own jailers.
So escape, true escape, requires a complete moral and social break, a severance.
And he begins this process symbolically, doesn't he? He climbs the Black Fort, the place that terrified him as a child.
Exactly, the place with the lizards and cows. By climbing it, he's confronting his past. And then he performs this visceral act of rejection. He spits down on his village, Laxmangar, again and again.
But that symbolic act isn't enough to actually break free. The final act of severance is much, much darker. After the hit and run, after the family's blackmail attempts, he goes to a temple in Bangalore.
And there he performs last rites for his family, for Kusum, for his brother Kishan, all of them, while they are still alive.
He's declaring them dead.
He is. He says, "Now leave me in peace." By ritually killing them, he frees himself. He removes the emotional and financial liability that kept him in the cage. He knows his survival depends on their destruction as hostages.
The moment that absolutely crystallizes all of this for Balram is the hit and run. This is the crisis that shatters any last bit of loyalty he might have had.
It's the ultimate test of the system. Pinky Madam is driving. She hits and kills a child. And the reaction from the elite is just immediate and cold. It's all self-preservation.
Their first instinct is to dehumanize the victim. They say, oh, people in the slums have 8, 9, 10 children. Sometimes they don't know the names of their own children.
Right. The life is instantly devalued, made disposable. Then they weaponize the legal system they've already paid for.
They force Balram to sign a confession. The wording is just chilling. There were no other occupants of the car. I was alone in the car and alone responsible.
It's the final proof that his body, his freedom, his name, they're all just commodities owned by his masters. He realizes in that moment that he's about to be framed, imprisoned, or maybe worse, end up like that other servant who was killed.
So what comes next, for him, isn't a crime of passion. It's an act of self-preservation.
So let's talk about it. The murder of Mr. Ashok. We are all conditioned to see murder as the ultimate moral wrong. But Balram frames it as something else entirely.
As necessary, not tragic.
Absolutely. The act itself is brutal. He uses a broken Johnny Walker Black bottle, a symbol of their imported elite luxury. But he justifies it not as revenge, but as a strike against the whole system that was making both of them miserable.
He argues he was freeing himself from becoming the ass who would just teach his own kids to serve the rich. But he also claims he was freeing Mr. Ashok, who was just as trapped in his own way by the corruption and the lies.
And even in that violent moment, you see the conflict inside him. He wonders, do we loathe our masters behind a facade of love, or do we love them behind a facade of loathing?
We are made mysteries to ourselves by the Rooster Coop we are locked in.
The system has so twisted his emotions he can't even tell what's real anymore. The murder is what finally cuts that knot.
And after, he steals the 700,000 rupees that was meant for bribes. And he immediately creates a new story to justify it.
A new narrative. He wasn't stealing from his master. He was taking back tax money that was stolen from the people of India. He reframes his crime as a revolutionary act.
And that stolen money is the seed capital for his new life. His transformation into Ashok Sharma, North Indian entrepreneur in Bangalore, is completely calculated. He uses the cash to buy his way into a new, higher level of the same corrupt system.
He hasn't broken the system. He has just successfully switched sides. He's gone from being the chicken to being one of the men outside the cage.
Adiga's real brilliance here is how he maps this entire system of inequality. So, for our deep dive, let's just lay out the pieces. Who are the actors here?
Okay, let's map it. At the top, you have the landlords. The stork, the buffalo. Their role is extraction and protection. Their incentive is profit, pure and simple, by controlling everything, land, water, roads.
And they enforce that with fear and violence. Then you have the servants, like Balram. Their job is labor, but also, critically, the internal policing of the coup.
Right. And their incentive isn't profit, it's just basic security. A uniform, some food, a roof over their head. Security that can be revoked at any moment.
Then you have the politicians, like the great socialists. They sell control, they manage rigged elections, and they hand out favors to stay in power.
And the glue that holds it all together? The police and judiciary. They're the fixers. Their incentive is purely financial. They sell impunity. They fix cases for whoever pays the most.
And this whole system is justified by these powerful narratives of control that make it all seem inevitable. The elites talk about merit. You have to work hard to get ahead. And the idea of destiny, your caste, determines your life.
But Balram rejects both of those completely. He throws out destiny and instead embraces this new aggressive narrative of the white tiger, a narrative of uniqueness, of aggression, of conquest. He replaces fatalism with calculated violence.
What's terrifying is how this system creates these feedback loops that just reproduce the inequality generation after generation.
You can trace the chain so clearly. Poverty, like his father's death, leads directly to servitude, where his family becomes a hostage. That servitude enables the elite's corruption, the bribes, the tax evasion, which in turn maintains the massive inequality.
So the failure of the public system creates the need for private servants, which generates the cash for the corruption that guarantees the public system will keep failing.
It's a perfect vicious circle. And the most damning part of Balram's story is that his success doesn't break the cycle. He just enters it at a higher level.
Right. His new taxi business in Bangalore, it requires him to play the same game.
He has to pay off the police inspector. He starts with 10,000 rupees in a red bag. He learns the fundamental rule. You'll have to keep paying and paying the fuckers. Success just means buying the power to operate outside the law, and that power requires a constant flow of cash. He just becomes a new part of the system he hated.
You know, this book was written about a specific time in India, but it has these chillingly relevant implications for global capitalism today. Balram's taxi service is completely tied into the global economy.
It is. His entire fleet runs on American time zones. His drivers are picking up call center workers at 2, 3, 4 in the morning because that's when the American workday is ending.
And that system creates these impossible profit-driven quotas, forcing the drivers to be reckless just to keep up, which is what leads to the fatal accident with his own driver.
It's a perfect picture of the human cost of invisible outsourced labor. The drivers are just disposable cogs in this global machine. When something goes wrong, the blame gets pushed down or the problem gets fixed with a bribe. The labor is cheap, but impunity is expensive and Balram pays for it.
And this whole system is maintained by the physical segregation, the total invisibility of the labor class in the cities. Balram describes the poor as these small, thin, grimy people living under flyovers, literally beneath the structures of modernity.
And the rich, meanwhile, they travel in what he calls dark eggs.
Expensive cars with tinted windows and powerful AC.
Completely shielded. They can't see the pollution, they can't see the suffering, they can't see the masses of people. The windows are a physical and a psychological barrier, an untouchability shield.
He has that perfect image of an egg cracking open just for a second. A woman's hand with gold bangles throws an empty water bottle onto the street.
And then the window goes up and the egg is resealed. That one small act, just flinging trash back at the masses, says everything about the contempt and isolation of the elite.
Balram even internalizes this himself. He throws a 100-rupee note into an open sewer and just watches the children fight over it. He's testing the system, confirming how desperate life is at the very bottom.
Which brings us back to where we started. His journey just fundamentally shatters the myths of meritocracy and self-made success. Yes, he's smart, he's driven, but hard work alone would have just made him a better servant.
His success is structural. It's not about merit. He bought impunity with stolen money, and he used a brutal act of murder to switch sides. He's not proof the system works. He's proof that you need bloodshed to escape it.
And now that he's a master, he just reinforces a new, colder kind of hierarchy. He runs his company on contracts, not loyalty. He tells his drivers he won't treat them like family. He offers them a chance to rise, but only if they mimic him, his cleanliness, his English. The revolutionary has just become a new kind of oppressor.
So in the end, Balram's story leaves us with this really grim, challenging picture of what freedom and success actually mean when you start from the bottom of a broken system.
For him, true freedom wasn't in spirituality. He mocks the 36 million gods for doing awfully little work, and it wasn't in democracy, which just sells votes. It was in the material power to act without being accountable to a master or a family. His ultimate victory is just survival. He avoided becoming another body in the black mud of Mother Ganga.
And it's so revealing how this deep inequality distorts morality. When his own driver gets into a fatal accident, Balram uses his new network, his paid-off police commissioner, to cover it up. He plays the game.
He does, but then he has this flicker of conscience. He tries to give the victim's family 25,000 rupees. It's an ethical gesture, however small.
But his own employee, the driver, sees it as a sign of weakness. He asks him, why did you waste so much money?
Right. In the ruthless system Balram has joined, any kind of ethical act is seen as liability, an invitation to be exploited. It's just warped his whole moral compass.
And the story leaves us with this really provocative, unresolved question. Balram dreams of building a school full of white tigers, teaching children nothing but the facts of life.
The implication being he wants to teach them the lessons of ruthlessness and violence that he learned. But if Balram is the model for the future, is his new city just going to be a more efficient version of the darkness? A Rooster Coop run by more competent, more ambitious, more morally broken masters?
Balram reflects on his own crime, and he wonders if everyone at the top, the Prime Minister, Premier Giabo, has killed someone or other to get there. And that's the final thought for you to consider. If escaping the Rooster Coop requires an act of unforgivable violence, what does that say about the true foundation of all great economic success?
A powerful, destabilizing question that lingers long after you finish the book. The source material for this deep dive was Aravind Adiga's extraordinary essential novel, The White Tiger.
We strongly encourage you to read the book yourself, support the author, or borrow it from your local library.
For a shorter visual overview of this topic, see the mini explainer linked in the description.
If you enjoy systems-level analysis like this, please like, subscribe, and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.